Thanks for tuning in, everybody. My name is Brock Page, and I'm still doing random sports picks for fun. No money. You also might be surprised as to who I'm picking in the early games today. If you just can't wait and you want to save yourself some time, check out my picks for this video in the description section below. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, good ain't free, and free ain't good. If for some reason you decide to use the free information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. And with that said, let's get into some early game picks for April 4th. First game I have for you, Orlando at Cleveland. The betting opened up with the Cavaliers as the 11-point favorites, and the total points at 222. Since then, Cleveland's now just -9 against the spread, with the total points moving downward to 220.5. Currently, the Cavs are heavily favored, laying 500 on the money line, and at the moment, 65% of the bettors think the Cavaliers will get the job done. Speaking of Cleveland, they're facing an Orlando squad who's lost their last 4 straight and failed to cover in 3 of those last 4. Overall, the Magic have covered just 40% in all games this season. Both teams have played in games going over the line in 2 of their last 3. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick as I'm in full agreement with the bettors. I think Cleveland at -9 will get the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I think this one goes over 220.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think the Cavs win this one at home. Next game I have for you, it is going to be Toronto at Indiana. The betting opened up with the Raptors as the 1-point favorites and the total points at an even 205. Since then, the Indiana Pacers are now -2.5 against the spread, with the total remaining at 205. Currently, the Pacers are laying 140 on the money line, and at the moment, 57% of the bettors think the Toronto Raptors get the job done. Speaking of Toronto, they've won 3 of their last 4 and cover an impressive 70% as the official road underdog. They're facing an Indiana team who's lost their last 4 and failed to cover in their previous 2 meetings head-to-head. Most astonishingly, yeah, big word there, both teams' last 4 games have all gone over the total posted points, respectively. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick as I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors. I think Toronto at -2.5 gets the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I think this one goes over 205. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think Toronto wins it outright. Next game, Brooklyn at Philadelphia. The betting opened up with the Sixers as the 1-point favorite and the total at 217.5. Since then, Philadelphia is still -1 against the spread, with the total points moving upward to 221.5. Currently, the Sixers are laying 115 on the money line, and at the moment, 71% of the bettors think the 76ers get the job done. Speaking of Philly, they've struggled against the number as of late, failing to cover in 2 of their last 3. They're also winless against the number, and they're only 3 games as the favorite. They're facing a Brooklyn team who's won their last 2 straight and covered in their last 3 consecutively. 3 out of Brooklyn's last 4 games have also gone under the total. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick as I think this game stays under 221.5. I'm foregoing the spread and the money line in this one. I'm leaning toward Philly on both. That said, don't hold me to that. Those 2 guesses are unofficial. Next and final game for the show, Charlotte at Washington. The betting opened up with the Wizards as the 6-point favorites and the total points at 217.5. Since then, Washington's now -3.5 against the spread, with the total moving upward to an even 218. Currently, the Wizards are laying 166 on the money line, and at the moment, 75% of the bettors think Washington will get the job done. Speaking of the Wizards, they're in a bit of a 3-game skid, but they're all losses to quality opponents on the road. And when it comes to the number, Washington does cover a solid 67% of their games at the current point spread. They also cover a respectable 68% of their games against teams around 500. They're facing a Charlotte team who's failed to cover in 2 of their previous 3 games head-to-head. On a side note, out of both teams' last 4 games respectively, only 1 of those games actually went under the total. All that said, I'm ready to make my final picks as I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors. I think Washington at -3.5 at home certainly gets the job done. When it comes to the total points, I think this one goes over 218. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think Washington wins it. All right, before I wrap it up here, let's go ahead and take a look at my heavily scrutinized teaser picks. The following parlay is a 10-point, 4-pick super teaser. Let's dive in. First pick, Orlando plus 19 against Cleveland. Second pick, the over 195 in the Toronto-Indiana game. Third pick, the under 231.5 in the Brooklyn-Philadelphia game. And my fourth and final pick for this teaser, Charlotte plus 13.5 at Washington. Just a reminder, my 10-point Sweetheart Super Teasers pay 5 to 6 and get graded as a loss should any game result in a push. You can find this exotic wager in several online sports books and in the state of Delaware. Well, folks, that is going to do it for me. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, good ain't free and free ain't good. If for some reason you decide to use the free information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. Most importantly, if you're betting any of these games, do it safe, do it responsibly, and most important, have fun. For Brock Page, predictions and sports picks, I'm Brock Page, and have yourself a positive day.